A lot of changes going on in Washington right now, including changes at the FDA, the U.S. Patent Office, and not to mention the impacts of the budget, healthcare reform. Hopefully nobody owns any Greek bonds here on the panel. But Virginia, how are you and your team preparing for the change?
Thank you. Yes, Washington, D.C. is definitely a sea of storm change, I guess is the best way. I just attended the AZBio meeting. We prepared ourselves by really focusing our energies on compliance at all levels and all departments within the company. In 2010, we decided to reapply for our 510K clearance with the FDA, which we earned in May of 2010. So we feel that we are all set with FDA, that we are marketing completely to the letter of the law. On the Medicare side, we are actually going to CMS on Monday to speak to them about the possibility of covering our device and paying for it. And that took about a year actually to get ready for this meeting, and has culminated in the building of our science, clinical, and as well as the health economic model to build the value proposition. And we know that our technology for every 1,000 patients that it's used on is going to save a payer $14 million. And when we looked at that, health economic analysis, that's when we felt confident that we could go forward and start talking to commercial payers as well as to the government Medicare and Medicaid offices. And on the patent side, we have a very strong and deep pipeline for our technology. We already have 14 issued patents, 14 pending, and we're spending about 9% on R&D to go into the biological patent process, and we'll do so in 2012. And with all of that effort, we hope that we're going through the regulatory processes in Washington, D.C. in the right form. We feel we're prepared.
Richard, I know your company works a lot preparing data that you're presenting to a regulator. Talk to us about your thoughts about healthcare reform and all the change in regulation.
Well, I think the FDA is changing. A lot of the stuff we see is on the statistical side. Specifically, in the ophthalmic division, for instance, a lot of the standard statistical tests, just a paired t-test or simple statistical tests were all they were willing to accept, up until, just a few years ago. Whereas now, really, a lot of new statisticians have come in and are looking at higher level models, willing to consider generalized linear models, Bayesian techniques, a lot of different high-level statistical techniques that can really help reveal, the true efficacy of a drug in a subpopulation or over a period of time, which, is now giving kind of light to different drug products that might have otherwise been, pushed aside or not considered. And so I think, the statisticians gaining more power within the FDA, it's a good thing for us and I think a good thing for everybody. And that's definitely something we're seeing. And I think some of the recent comments by the FDA also relative to wanting to work with the VCs and start supporting really drug development and not make the FDA such a hurdling block, and helping to de-risk opportunities and understanding how the funding environment is contingent upon the FDA's willingness to not come up with late-stage issues. Right. I think is starting to be more well understood through the FDA, and I think that that's going to translate over the next couple, hopefully sooner than the next couple of years, but towards some reversal of some of the, I think, challenges we've
had today. And I recently read
the climate, I think, is changing a little bit.
Right. I recently read innovation is going to be part of the mission statement for the FDA now too. So hopefully some of those things will change. But I think, Murray, you had a comment you wanted to share.
It's interesting because on the blood testing area, it comes up through the device side, and we're always trying to prove substantially equivalent, and it's hard to prove novel and substantially equivalent at the same time in the same breath. So one of the challenges that we're having on the diagnostic side is there's a lot of changes in research use only, laboratory developed test, and then ultimately a 510K IVD product, and it's becoming more and more risk adverse, you know, so there's more regulations and more control. So the way that we had to approach it is we have just decided to focus first on intended use that is less risky so that we can get it through as our own predicate device and then follow on with intended uses that are broader as follow-on IVD 510Ks. The other key thing is that by limiting and going after a less risky intended use up front, it becomes manageable from funding a clinical study, because clinical studies are very expensive, and so, you know, you have to first get a proof of principle out there on an intended use that you feel very comfortable that you're going to, well, how do you ever say comfortable with the FDA? Wrong word. But that you can feel like that the odds are more favorable in you getting through your first device. So it's all about managing down the intended use to something that becomes very realistic.
Sure, Steve.
We certainly see that one of the major drivers out of the FDA and medicine and, you know, in general is this personalized healthcare, personalized medicine, and it changes every area of the drug development or the device development. You know, a little bit on statistics there, a little bit on IVD work over here, and I think what we need to leverage a little more in Arizona is that we have been leaders in personalized medicine. I mean, when I was in San Diego 7 years ago, you guys were pioneering in this area, particularly in clinical usage, with what IGC did, what Caris is doing with Target Now, what Ventana is doing with, you know, the example mentioned, that's the Ventana test, you know, run down in Tucson. So there's a lot of threads of personalized medicine in this state that go back, you know, almost a decade. And I think we really need to see that as a major opportunity and recognize what Arizona's done now that a lot of other states are kind of just jumping on this, oh, personalized medicine, you know, let's go do some of that.
Okay. Will, one more.
As Maureen knows, I'm a little blunt at times, but her and I have worked in the device field for a while, and I want to say that just like the EPA, the FDA can never sneak up on you. I've had people complain to me about the IVD MIA regulations. They've been pending 17 years. So if you are surprised by a new regulation, you need some help on your staff or in terms of your consulting groups.